Aloha and to lo-fi to the across the spectrum peoples. We got a special guest for you today. I'm looking at the wrong camera. We got a special guest for you today, Butch Ware. You guys have been asking me to get him on. I've been trying, and now he has enough time to be on. I appreciate you, Dr. Butch Ware, for coming on. Uh, I told you a little bit about my audience. Introduce yourself, and thank you for being on.
Yeah, man, it's good. I'm glad we can make the time. I'm definitely looking forward to the conversation today for sure.
Okay, let's see. You were running for governor in California. So before we get to that, all my people ask me, where's the Green Party? Where's the Green Party between the national elections? Where's Jill Stein? And you became pretty big during this last election, running with Jill Stein as VP, and you kind of seem like the star of the Green Party, maybe. And so, let's see, what was it? Yeah,
They're asking where we are.
right. Where are you? Yeah, I kind of forgot where I was going. Yeah, where are you in between elections?
Yeah, I mean,
Where are
so
we?
first of all, we've heard this question, and there's so usually when somebody asks where's the Green Party between presidential elections, it's a bad faith question. They're essentially allowing their lack of attention to what the Green Party is doing and the mainstream media blackout of Green Party activities to plant in their heads the idea that the Green Party isn't staying busy. There's literally hundreds of Green Party elected officials all around the country, and people are running between cycles, between presidential cycles all the time. But there's a part of the question that is also, useful to respond to, which is that, in my own estimation, as a Green Party member, as a Green Party candidate, the Green Party has not done enough to build within communities and to develop strength between those electoral cycles.
Yes.
So one of the things that I said when I announced my candidacy for governor in the state of California is they said that y'all don't do anything between presidential cycles. What they gonna say now? I'm running for the biggest office in the state of California, starting to build the campaign early, building it from the ground up, bringing together, you know, um, the Muslim community and a significant donor base there, with the broader kind of leftist community, all of the people that are trying to opt out of the duopoly. We've already got, I think, 500 volunteers registered through the campaign website, and we've only been live for 2.5 months. So the answer to where the Green Party is, we outside. That's where we at.
Okay.
And you don't have to look far to find me. I'm on social media. I do between 10 and 15 public appearances, either media spots like this one or public lectures a week. So yeah, ain't gonna be hard to find.
Right on. So you're a teacher, right? A professor.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So behind me, on the Zoom, you see North Hall at University of California, Santa Barbara, where I teach, and this is a photo from 1968, when the black students took over North Hall and renamed it Malcolm X Hall. So yeah,
Okay.
coming to you live from Santa Barbara.
Right on. So where the Green Party is, back to that. A lot of the people on my channel have told me that the Green Party needs to do more, so like social media, more recording, more advertising of their stuff. Because I tell them, like, you and Jill Stein and Shama Sawant, like, you guys do stuff and go to protests and do rallies and things like that. But they tell me that it's not promoted enough. Where, like, you got with Jasmine Crockett right now, right? She's going around doing all these just like interviews where she's like acting a little bit extra, right? And she's
Yep.
getting out there and she's getting lots and lots of views. So
All
people
right,
are
Sean
telling me that the
Crockett.
Green Party needs to find a way to get views. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I would go to the example of, the Zionist BS and AOC Pelosi tour, the Zionist Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tour. They're flying on private jets between destinations. The logistics alone on these campaign events that they're doing, are in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Democrats have budgets to do those things, and when you're talking about the party machinery of a corporate party that is drenched in blood money at all times, they can afford to do that. They can afford to publicize what they're doing, because they're also in those particular instances actually sitting office holders. So they have a responsibility to be doing those things. When somebody asks a question about, what Green Party candidate X is doing when they're not in elected office, and working at their day job the way that I'm working in my day job, I'm putting in a regular, work week and then putting in a 60-hour work week on top of that, campaigning. And we're doing it without taking a nickel of genocide money. We're doing it without taking a nickel of corporate money. It's all funded by the people. So it's like comparing, apples to oranges. When people start comparing, what we're doing to seated Democrats that, have plenty of APAC money to spend.
Okay. So you talked about the oligarchy tour, which is what Bernie Sanders and AOC are calling it.
Yeah, I think
So
they're calling it the Fighting Oligarchy Tour, but I love calling it the Oligarchy Tour. I think you got it right. Uh,
so I cover a channel. Do you know Secular Talk or Kyle Kalinske?
no, I don't think so.
Okay, I cover him a lot on my channel, and he gets the biggest views on my channel. Like I
Got
get
you.
say 2 to 3 thousand views sometimes with him, and those are my biggest views. I'm not a really big channel, but
Mhm.
he really got me. He didn't get me into politics, but he was one of the first YouTubers. He's been out for like 10, 12, 14 years. You should look him up, try to get on a show. That would really help the Green Party out a lot. I guarantee it. But what he does is he used to be really for the third party, really for against the Democrats and the Republicans. He was a left winger, but he got that Trump derangement syndrome. When Trump got
Okay.
in, at first the first term he wasn't totally gone, right? But then he just lost it after Joe Biden was president, and then when Trump
Became
was
one of
running
those
again.
vote blue no matter who.
Right now he's a vote blue no matter who, and I never thought he would be like that, and it really just it hurts my feelings. Like I used to really love this dude, not like in a way, a watcher way, but so my thing is fighting the oligarchy. To really fight the oligarchy, we have to fight the duopoly. The Democrats are just as much of the oligarchy as the Republicans are. It's like if we just go to the Democrats. Like Joe Biden has a video talking about tried to prostitute himself when he was in his 30s, and that he was too young. They said that come back when he's established, and he wanted to prostitute himself. Like that is straight oligarchy stuff, right? So can you like elaborate on that a little bit about
Yeah,
how
Einstein's definition of
insanity?
insanity was to say it is repeating the same actions and expecting a different outcome. So I'm a
Yes,
history professor, by training. Not history professors are not usually the best at reading the future. We study the past. So I can't say that I know exactly what's coming next, with the Trump, madness. The one thing that I know for sure is that the Democrats cannot and will not protect us. The only thing that I know for sure is that that is not an opposition party. And when you watch the way that the so-called progressive wing of the Democrat Party moves, it's very clear that their job is to keep third-party power from emerging. Their job is to shepherd people back within the confines of the Democrat Party. And anybody that would fall for that dog and pony show in 2025, after Bernie Sanders in 2016, energized a progressive populist base and then
right,
handed him off to Hillary Clinton. After he energized a progressive popular base and then handed him off to genocide Joe Biden, or
right,
crime bill Joe Biden as he was before he was genocide
exactly,
Joe Biden, right? This is an imperialist agent of the carceral state. Joe Biden doesn't get any dirtier than that cat, right? So again, in 2024, both Zionist Bernie Sanders and AOC Pelosi told us we have to vote for Kamala, right? So their job, quite literally, structurally, inside the Democrat Party, is to bring people back when it looks like they might come off of the Democrat plantation. And the Democrat Party is a plantation. When they were making these arguments during the presidential campaign with Dr. Stein and myself, saying that we're taking votes away from them,
right,
how do you own votes? What kind of model is in your head? Because the model that's in their head is that voters of color belong to the Democrat Party. You are poaching our slaves if you start to come for our voters. They are our proprietary possessions.
Right.
And as Malcolm, Malcolm X Hall over my shoulder, Malcolm said of black people specifically within the Democrat Party in 1964, he said, "You put them first and they put you last." And that
Mm,
makes you a chump. It makes you a political chump. So, for your average regular Democrat voter of any color, how long have you been putting that party first? And how have they done in taking care of your basic needs? The wealth gap increased between black and white during the Biden years more than it did in the years before Trump. Obama set records for putting kids in cages that only Biden could break.
right.
And we saw this, that the studies that despite all the brutality, theatrics, and repression of the Gestapo ICE that Trump is displaying for the public, Biden deported more people in the first 3 months of 2024
Mm,
than Trump did in the first 3 months of 2025. So, again, if you think that this party is coming to your rescue and is going to fulfill your basic needs, whether you're a working person, whether you're a person of color, whether you are a person in the LGBTQ community, whatever it is, wherever you are positioned, they ain't for you. They
right.
are for themselves. They work for the same corporate interests that the Republicans work for. So you have to choose. If you're staying inside this duopoly, you have to choose between fascism or fascism. One
Right.
comes with a smiley
Exactly.
face, one comes with a frown, but both teams, red and blue, are serving militarized fascism on
Exactly.
every day that ends in a Y.
Yep. Right. And so, um, voting for Green, saying that we're pulling from Dems. I tell people we're not really pulling from Dems. We're taking people who don't vote and getting them energized. Most people who know about the Green Party won't vote for a Democrat and are more likely to vote for Republicans and Democrats. Like they'll research and vote for either one, and then vote for some Libertarians and maybe some Greens. Like they're gonna do research if they know about us. And a big thing for that was you guys got on the Breakfast Club, and that was huge. Get back on there if you can. But
Yeah.
yes, that was huge. And if you read the comments, people didn't know about the Green Party. They were like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this was even an option. I didn't. I'm voting for them. I'm voting for them." And there was a lot of black people because the
Yep.
Breakfast Club is obviously a black show, right?
Yep.
But there was so many black people who just didn't know, and then just not just black people, but white people, all kinds of people don't know about the
Across the
Green Party.
board.
We need to
Yeah.
get that out. But yeah, I just we're not taking from the Democratic Party. We're taking from those who are disenfranchised.
100%. And for the record, in the last 3 weeks before the presidential election in November 2024, two of the last polls that came out actually showed us pulling more voters away from Team Red than we were pulling away from Team Blue.
I can see
And
that.
I think that people have a lot of misconceptions about that. Like, for example, after we made that Breakfast Club appearance, I got a significant following, even one could say a fan base of Black conservatives who,
Nice.
would would be happy to opt out of, Trump's, explicit racism if
Right.
given an option that isn't the Democrats, because nobody, and I'm just going to be blunt about this, like nobody that's made a careful study of the dependency politics that the Democrats have unleashed on the black community over the last 60 years trust that party any further than they can throw them. So we definitely have an opportunity to recruit from people who, have voted in different ways in the past. But as you mentioned, the group that we engage and activate the most are people that wouldn't vote for either of those parties under any circumstances. Now,
Agree.
my theory of the case in running the state of California, um, the way that it builds off of that insight that you offered is I think that there was probably nationwide something like 15 million people that might have under other circumstances voted for a Democrat candidate but could not hold their nose and vote for a genocider.
Right. Yes.
This was a massive, issue, and it's going to continue to be a massive issue for the Democrat Party because even to this day, Bernie Sanders can't call it a genocide.
Right.
Sanders is watching people, get arrested at his rallies just for holding a free Palestine flag. They can't get any plausible deniability about genocide because they're the ones that authored it. So 15 million people, and that number is going to increase. A lot of people are just opting out of the Democrat Party altogether because the genocide has stripped them naked in front of the American populace. I think that there's a similar number of people, maybe 15 million, maybe more, that did hold their nose and vote for a white supremacist, Trump. That, but if given another option, and again, it goes back to the point you made, a lot of people aren't even aware that we exist, aren't even aware that Greens exist. That day of the Breakfast Club interview, I got 1,000 DMs, 1,000
Nice.
from people that said never heard of you before today voting Green, right? So I think that there's a similar number of people, and that you can recruit from the margins of both of those major parties. But the biggest group of voters in this last electoral cycle was people that didn't vote or non-voters
Let's
outnumbered
see.
voters for either party, 90 million.
Right.
And the reason that people don't vote is that they have no reason to believe in this electoral politics. They have no reason to believe that it makes any damn difference whether you vote for a Democrat or a Republican,
Right.
because
Because
you
it
are
doesn't.
going to get the same corporate exploitation. You are going to get the same lack of representative democracy no matter who you vote for. So I think that by tapping into that core group and then drawing from either of those margins, we are going to be able to make an effective case in the state of California. And I can talk a little bit more about the logistics of that, as we get down the road.
Okay. So I want to take a little shift as you talk about the state of California.
Yeah.
I watch Joe Rogan. Like my channel's called Across the Spectrum, right? So I watch really far right leaning stuff, all the way to fascist stuff, to really far left leaning stuff, to communist, to that, whatever anyone wants to call it. And I watch the middle stuff and all that. So a lot of the right, further right people, Patrick Bet David, Joe Rogan, them, they have people on and they say they're leaving California, right? They're leaving California from the taxes. They're leaving California because the homeless people. They're leaving California for different reasons. A lot of people are going to Texas and Florida. A lot of right wingers. I'd like you to speak. So they blame the Democrats, right? They blame the Democrats' taxes. They blame the Democrats being soft on crime. They blame the Democrats letting people steal and being way too far left, and that they're left states, that they want to leave them, this and that. So what's the difference in the Green Party politics, and our left wing politics, to where if we voted Butch Ware in, we would have different policies, different laws, or different whatever that would make the homeless better, would make it better for just everybody. And what's your view kind of on that?
Yeah. So first of all, back to to Joe Rogan's and and others. I mean, listen, uh, I'm of two minds on this. The first thing that I'll say is, billionaires looking to protect their bottom line is not the least bit, unusual. So part of me is inclined to say, look, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, on your way out of town. But I'm not going to go that route in this context, just because a lot of the predicates of those arguments are just demonstrably false. So the first part about rising crime, and that crime is rising because the Democrats are too left. Democrats are not leftists.
I agree.
Democrats are not even objectively the left in a liberal conservative ideological or political spectrum. The contemporary Democrat Party is so far to the right of Ronald Reagan that Reagan is like can't be seen in the distance from how far out. No, it's the truth.
No.
I mean, when you look at all of the neoliberal trickle down economics that the Bill Clintons and Hillary Clintons
Yeah.
and Kamala Harris's and Joe Biden's of the world and the Gavin Newsoms of the world instituted, it is objectively clear that today's Democrat Party is well to the right of where the Republicans used to be, and today's Republican Party is well to the right of where the German National Socialists were. Okay, so you're not choosing between a right and a left when you talk about Democrats and Republicans. You are choosing between two right-wing corporate parties.
Right.
Now, with respect to the corruption and the mismanagement and the yeah, poor governance of the Democratic leadership in the state of California, I mean, amen. Like I will serve as a witness from the congregation on that. The current Democratic governing regime, and you see this in places like LA with Karen Bass, you see this with Gavin Newsom. They essentially use city and state budgets as personal big piggy banks to pay out, to their cronies. It's a mafia organization.
Right.
No sensible person would accept this kind of level of corruption from their basic political leadership. But it's just that the Democrat Party in the state of California has gotten so comfortable that it doesn't ever perceive a threat from the Republicans, that they're Denzel on Training Day. Like King Kong ain't got nothing on them.
Right.
They're just running wild, right? And because there is no effective check on their power, not until I run. So that's the other part of it, is that this is a state that has been dominated by a democratic political machine that is rotten to its core. I'll give you an example of how rotten it is to speak to some of the social issues that you mentioned. The Democrats passed universal health care in the state of California when Schwarzenegger was president. I'm sorry, governor, because they knew he would veto it.
Right.
After he was out of power,
They didn't do it again.
They can't do it. They
Right.
keep falling a couple votes short, just the way that Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema somehow managed to hold up the progressive agenda that the Democrats really wanted to get ahead. They're play acting. So they have to pretend that they're about fulfilling and meeting the basic needs of the constituencies that elected them, but they actually work for the corporations. And the proof of it is that the last time they tried to pass universal health care, which had a groundswell of support from a lot of elected representatives that are really seriously thinking about serving their constituencies, all the votes were there. Everybody said all the votes were there. 2022. And then the insurance companies laid $1 million down on the Democrat Party, and the votes disappeared overnight. And
So you're
that's
gonna,
the way the state of California works. Go ahead.
if you're governor of Hawaii, if you're governor of California, I live in Hawaii, so if you're governor of California, will you do something to try to pass universal health care? What would be your plan on that?
Universal health care will get done in the first 100 days. Promise it.
How would you do that?
So the issue is that, as I mentioned, you have those representatives that have their votes have been there multiple times, and there are multiple constituencies throughout the state of California, including significant business constituencies that have been hammering for universal health care for decades. The reason is that universal health care will actually make California more competitive. You're not going to lose people to Texas who are just trying to get tax breaks for themselves. And the reason for that is relatively simple. General Motors pays more for health care nationwide than it pays for steel.
Whoa, I never heard that. Okay.
More for health care than they pay for steel for their automobiles. The first state of any size to establish universal health care is going to be a major business draw, because companies are going to come post up, because they're not going to have to worry about all of these costs being footed by employers. And it's going to allow unions, just crazy when you think outside the duopoly, how you realize things are going to unfold. Businesses are going to love it, right? Because it gives them
that makes sense.
Especially small business owners are going to love it.
Right.
Because when you run a small business, you can't compete with the larger corporations that can provide healthcare. Unions are also going to love it, because instead of negotiating for healthcare and benefits, they can get back to negotiating about wages and working conditions, correct? Everybody gets to do their job better. You get, more resources distributed in a more democratic fashion, and the society functions better than it does under the current, model. And just to continue that point, right now in the state of California, the taxpayers already pay 70 cents on every healthcare dollar in the state of California.
Mm,
And we have a lousy system that leaves a lot of people uncovered. And nationwide, 30 cents on every healthcare dollar goes to the insurance companies and the paperwork pushers that
right.
whose job it is to deny us care, which is why Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare executive, got debrained in downtown Manhattan because nobody on any side of the political spectrum has any love for people whose job it is to deny you health care so that they can wring another nickel out of you.
Right.
So that will be easy to pass because there's support for it across the ideological spectrum. But the Democrats have lacked the political will to carry that thing across the finish line because it was against the interests of their specific corporate donors. They take money from those insurance companies and therefore they bailed. Me, I'm a light. I will put them on Front Street. I will put them on
Nice.
blast. Every single person who stands in the way of Californians receiving healthcare, I'll post about them daily. I'll make a reel about them daily. Like that's the one right there. They are standing between you and your healthcare. They're standing between you and your mama's insulin. They are standing between.
Right.
I won't take my foot off the gas until that's done because we've seen it get so close, but the political will to finish the job was lacking.
Excellent. Excellent. I love it. You said something about the rotten Dems, and so as I just joined the Green Party in December of this past year, 2024, and as I've been going to a couple of the what do you call it, protests and marches and stuff, we asked for signatures for the Greens, and we just talked to people and whatnot. And I found that the Democrats, like what is it, MoveOn.org and
Yeah.
a couple other independent something maybe, but there's a bunch of these things that are supposed to be left wing and progressive
Oh,
organizations.
indivisible.
Indivisible, yes, yes. And there's supposed to be like these, there's like four or five pretty big ones that are supposed to be left wing progressive organizations, but they're actually just Democratic funnels that I found out. And when I asked them
Controlled
for Green
opposition.
Party signatures, they tell me they can't do it, that they're supporting the Democrats. And I've even had some people tell me that they would lose their job if they signed it. And it's weird to me. Actually, my sister lives in Florida, and she got a job with this one. I forget what it's called. It's like it's three letters, but it's a Democratic front too. And like, I asked her to run with the Green Party, and she went and asked her people and told them about it. And they said, "Oh no, you can't do that. That we only support Democrats." But they said that they support like left wing candidates, and that's how they promote themselves. But they only support Democrats.
Working Families Party is essentially just a second ballot line for the Democrats, depending on which branch. Oftentimes, Democratic Socialists, DSA, are just another branch of Democrats. Another one that you didn't name, another one of these controlled opposition organizations during the 2024 electoral cycle was Uncommitted.
Okay.
Uncommitted, was literally founded. The job of Uncommitted was to keep the Muslim voters, first in the state of Michigan and then nationwide, from going to third parties because they knew, the
Just
Democrats
not
knew from
voting.
internal polling as early as January 2024 that whereas Joe Biden had received 65% of the Muslim vote in the crucial swing states, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and a few others in 2020, he was polling at 12% in those places in January 2024. So people that joined Uncommitted thinking that they could put pressure on the Democrats to stop the genocide didn't know that they were joining an organization that had been founded only to keep those voters from joining a third party. It was
Right.
formed to keep them inside the party. It's the very definition of controlled opposition. And the hands-off movement, indivisible, 50501, and so forth, that is their job. You have to understand that you are dealing with people that just in a 10-week presidential election cycle with Kamala Harris were able to wring $1.5 billion out of
Right.
the Democrat voting base. They don't give a good goddamn whether they win elections or not if they can drain those kind of resources out of the people. So they are going to do everything that they can to keep their hooks in as many as they can. The good news is that we've already seen that this doesn't work when you have targeted, effective messaging and organizing for specific communities. For example, the Muslim community, which was targeted by uncommitted in the 2024 cycle, the Muslim community voted for the Green Party in the presidential election 53%.
Mm.
53% of Muslims voted for the Steinway ticket, 20% for Trump, 20% for Kamala. So even with our limited and meager resources, by responding to the issue that was of central concern to this specific demographic and speaking to that community, we flipped them. And I know that we're going to be able to do exactly that, not just with the Muslim community, but with significant portions of the Black community, with significant portions of the Latin community, with significant portions of working class folks inside the state of California. And it's actually easier than people think. Like part of the argument and the reason why a lot of people, end up in that vote blue no matter who space is that they don't actually believe that a third party can win. I know a third party can win. I've seen it happen. I saw Jesse Ventura run as an independent candidate in the state of Minnesota and win the governor's mansion. But in the state of California, it's even easier than that. So they set up this jungle primary where only the top two candidates advance, and that's June 2nd of 2026. And this is designed to keep the duopoly moving forward without any kind of significant third-party input. Except the state of California leans so far liberal, progressive, and then even like leftist and radical that there are as many registered independents in the state of California as there are registered Republicans, which means that it is actually not difficult to get into the second position in that primary election. In 2022, the second place finisher, I'm forgetting the name of the Republican that finished second to Gavin Newsom, got only 17.7% of the vote.
It's not much.
Not much at all.
Right.
And primaries, so the duopoly is trying to reproduce itself. And it does that by putting the primary in June when nobody votes. So there were only 5.5 million voters in a state that has 39 million people as its population, right?
Okay.
So what that means is that if we are able to effectively build a grassroots third party movement, we literally only have to get 1.3, 1.4 million votes in June of 2026. We only have to get to as low as maybe 15%. The maximum number that we would have to get to would be 19 or 20% of the electorate. Nice. You can get to those numbers just by getting all of the Muslims in the state of California, to vote, and a few others. So we have an opportunity to build a coalition that will get us at least into that number 2 slot. Now reset after that happens, right? Whoever the Democrat is, likely Kamala, but it could be another Democrat if Kamala, decides not to run. What they're going to have to deal with is me on a debate stage for the next 5 months, from June to November. And what I did to Angela Rye on the Breakfast Club, Kamala can come get hers.
Right.
Kamala can come get hers if she's the one that run. If Katie Porter is the one that comes out of that mix, Katie Porter, I'm gonna get whiteboards and show, Katie, I stand with Israel Porter, how many children have been murdered, just with the tax dollars of Californians. And that the state of California has said over and over that it wants a full divestment from any genocidal investments. So when I'm running on universal health care, affordable housing, rent control, that state divestment from genocide, who you think that they're going to vote for once that's the framing? Right, and all of those Republican voters that just hate the Democrats, I can be a vehicle for delivering righteous retribution for them too.
Right. So after the jungle primary, is there only 2 options? It's going to be just...
That's exactly it. It's just the top 2 finishers.
So then there's no pulling from nobody?
Nope.
Excellent.
So from that point in time, it's just reset, and then it's just blue versus green.
Right.
And if it's just blue versus green, I like my chances.
Right. I think you could win that pretty easily, actually, especially if you get to the first or second slot.
That's the key. And just for that point, some factual data behind this. early in Gavin Newsom's career, he ran against Matt Gonzalez for mayor in the city of San Francisco. Matt Gonzalez got 47% of the vote. Gavin Newsom got 53%, right? Gavin Newsom almost had his career ended before it started by a
Right.
Green Party candidate in a progressive city. We can absolutely do the same thing statewide in the state of California.
I love it. I love it. You said you were talking about coalition building, and you also talked about how DSA is kind of not what they seem to be. I am in Hawaii, like I said. Our DSA is far left. They are what DSA is supposed to be, and then I was.
I said it depends on where you
Oh no
are.
no yeah
I
yeah,
want to
and
be clear
I
about
was
that.
getting to that, and so I was surprised to talk because what I'm doing right now, like I'm talking to you, I talked to David Atias, who is in New York. I talked to Greens as much as I can all over the nation. I'm trying to just help build this coalition or whatever. But a lot of them have told me that the DSA is a Democratic, like plant or whatever. And I was surprised to hear that. But what I'm trying to do is talk to as many Greens as I can. I'm trying to talk to the DSA. I'm trying to talk to the PSL and build the broadest, biggest left-wing coalition that I can. Help the Green Party do that, and help everybody do that. So yeah, that you brought up the DSA too. That kind of hurts my feelings a little bit. That the DSA is doing that around. They're the Democratic Socialists of America.
Yeah.
How are you gonna be socialist and then be in the Democratic Party? That doesn't make any
Well, I
sense.
mean, there's levels and degrees, and again, I think it depends on where you are. I think that there's a lot of DSA folks that are incredibly committed. Some that are downright revolutionaries. But I mean, let's be clear. So I'll give you an example. Zoran Mamdani running in for mayor
Yes.
in New York City. If I was in New York, I would vote for Zoran Mamdani. Don't get me wrong. Like like that he's it does not appear at this point in time that he's going to survive the Democratic primary process. But the point is he is running in the Democratic primary. He is running as a Democrat, despite the fact that he's, a Democratic socialist. And my fundamental issue is that in the end, like I understand that in this particular moment and for the past decade or so, there have been reasons for people to have strategic alliances with the Democrat Party, even if they were genuine leftists. Let's be clear, those were always tenuous connections. But after October of 2023, those connections are no longer tenable. There is no liaison, there is no connection, there is no playing nice with genociders, period. And people have to understand that historically speaking, the word Democrat, after history has pronounced its judgment on the genocide in Gaza, the word Democrat is going to sound like the word German National Socialist. That's what it's going to sound like.
So you brought up Zoran Mandani, if I said that right. Do you know who Jose Vega is?
Rings a bell. Why did it ring a bell?
He's out of New York, and he's one of the ones who he's like went to an AOC speech and was like speaking up against her. He's been on Jimmy Dore a
Oh,
few
yeah, yeah,
times.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, there's him. Maybe if you know Kat Abu Ghazali, and I probably Ro Khanna, right? In the
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So like these are politicians and people that I've looked at and know that I think that the Green Party should contact. I think somebody like you who has a little bit of standing more than me, right, in the Green Party, and Jill Stein, if you guys reached out to these people and brought them into the Green Party and said, we're trying to fill up the ballots, we want to get these independents, these left-wing people, these progressive people together. We just have the most ballot access right now, the Green Party. So let's fill the Green Party and forget labels, forget brand, right? Because we could be Green DSA, we can be Green PSL, whatever you want to be, right? But I think if we got some of these guys, because like you're kind of like a rock star in the Green Party right now, and you get a lot of views and people like you and stuff. If we could get a few more people like you in the Green Party, like Zoran in New York, right? That would be great. And I think that would be better than being independent or Democrat, because it would get those people who aren't voting vibed up and stuff. And then if we had real people like you out there that people listen to, then the Democrats might not be so much like the voters anyway. might be like more willing to listen. Right? Oh, they got 4 or 5 people around the
Yeah,
nation. They got a couple governor seats maybe going on, a couple senator
yeah.
seats going on. So what would you think about trying to reach out to some of these guys and maybe trying to bring them to the light side, the green side, whatever we call
I
it?
mean, I'll do you one better. Quite a few of them have reached out to me,
Nice.
unprompted, and unsolicited, to have conversations. And I won't name the names of those individuals, in this conversation,
Okay.
but a number of prominent Democrats of color, who, have made it clear, especially their position on genocide, but also, their position on the carceral state and other things have already reached out to me. And let me just be clear. It is inevitable that the that the Green Party is going to absorb the lion's share of the political momentum going into 2028 for a couple of simple, what's the word I'm looking for? Tactical reasons. So the first is that we came out of the 2024 electoral cycle in the third position. The Green Party had not finished third in a presidential election in decades. So we're going to Ralph Nader, period, since the last time that happened. And we have the best ballot access nationwide because the Green Party has been able to, to check those boxes, to run candidates in the appropriate time, to get those minimum, number of voters for key target offices across the country, to where, we were able to appear on, you could vote for us essentially in 46, I think, states, out of the 50 states this last time around. So the Democrats are falling apart. They are not going to survive the state of genocide. And even if they do, they're not an effective opposition party, which means that it is inevitable that a true opposition party will emerge. That's the reason why I'm running for governor of California in 2026, so that we can build the infrastructure inside the wealthiest, most populous state in the union. We turn California green in 2026, bruh, that's the end of the duopoly. That right
That would
there
be
is the
nice.
end of the duopoly. And as a matter of fact, the duopoly ends on June 2nd, 2026, if I finish in either of the top two positions. And the reason is that that same Republican that got 17.7% of the vote and finished second in the primary got 40% of the vote in the gubernatorial, because it's just, two people against
Right.
one another. If I survive that primary, guarantee you we're coming out of that with, at a bare minimum, 45% of the vote. 45% of the vote in a governor's race in California demonstrates to the entire nation that the Green Party can win major elections. And that changes the entire environment in 2028. People are not going, the people that are interested in true opposition and transformative political change do not, to this point, have the resources or the wherewithal to found a
Right.
new political party, which means that whichever political party outside of the duopoly gets out ahead and sets the pace, everybody else is going to get down with them. And that's what I've been telling people, is just watch me run this race, support this, because this is the tip of the spear in breaking the duopoly. And when not only those other leftists, but also all of those kind of independent, minded folks see the organizational infrastructure and the fundraising that we're building in the state of California, they're going to realize I need to either get down or lay down, because it is going down in California, like it is, and that's what people are going to see. Watch.
Right on. I like it. I like it. Um, People keep telling me you need to try to infiltrate the Democrats and change them, right? And I'm like, there's two corporate parties. They're
Yeah.
going to be corporate because the corporations pay, and they're going to give good money. And even if you go into the Democratic Party with good intentions, if they let you stay in, they're going to be paying you, and you're going to change, or they're going to kick you out like a Cory Booker, and there's a couple other people.
Corey Bush and Jamal Bowman. Yeah.
Cory Bush, yes, my bad. There you go. And so, what I'm telling people is, if there's a party that already has your politics, right? They already have everything you want to do. And then you saw a Barack Obama in 2008, 2012. You saw Bernie Sanders in 2016, 2020 build all these people, get this big, big movement, right? If they'd have just put him in the Green Party would have facilitated that movement, right? Would have nourished it and been like, yes, let's build, let's grow, let's do this, and kept that. And so people are arguing with me, telling me that it's going to be easier to say change what I would call a fascist party, a party of Joe Biden who passed the crime bill, like you said, who said, I don't care how they got to be this way. I only care that they're going to hurt my family members, and then let's put them in jail and worry about it later. So if you know society isn't doing well for the people that you are governing, you're like in government, Joe Biden at the time, right? You're like, I don't care why they're here. I just worry about my people. So to me, I'm trying to convince people that it'd be much easier to get all these people in this movement to join the Green Party, a party that already has your values and thoughts or whatever, than to try to take a fascist party who does not care about you and says it out loud. Like even Hillary Clinton has said it. What Kamala Harris has said, she doesn't really, she put people in jail for their kids being true in school. It's just
Yeah.
this weird. But like they tell you they don't really care about you, and I'm trying to tell people let's build the party that has your politics. What do you think about that?
So you got to understand that you're making rational arguments with people that are in a toxic relationship with an abusive spouse.
Okay, yes.
So because what they're telling you is no, he can change. He can
Right.
change. That's what they're, even though objectively speaking, there is zero evidence of any change. And in fact, the situation has gotten objectively worse. Crime bill, Joe Biden, alongside Bill Clinton, most singularly responsible for creating that 100-to-1 crack versus powder cocaine sentencing guidelines, is responsible for locking up an entire generation of black and brown folks and throwing away the key, and the privatization of the prison industry, and
Exactly.
even when it's public prisons, all of the pieces are privatized, the meals are privatized, the telecom service, all of that's for sale.
Right.
Negroes for sale. Okay, still in 2020,
14th Amendment.
that's the case. So you're telling me that that party, which just has gotten worse and worse, is going to change. And the thing is you got to understand, like, this is literally what it sounds like. So the Democrats come to you and they say, listen, baby, I know I didn't get you that health care I promised you. I know I didn't take you to the hospital, and I know I didn't get you the medicine.
I like
I
it.
know, and I know that I took all the money and I spent it on guns. Like this is buying weapons for Israel. I spent it on guns, and it's true I did kill all those kids. I shot up that school, but I promise, baby, next time I'm gonna get you that health care. Now I know you gave me, some money to take care of our housing, problem, and I spent it, and can't nobody keep any. No, nobody knows where the money, went. Like literally, the house is falling apart, and they're spending all of their money on guns and ammo, and then they come and tell you, but baby, but but over there it's even worse. You got to
Right.
stay with me, baby, because those people over there are scary. You go out there in this big world, a Republican might get you. Right?
You're
And,
not.
and
You're
go
actually
ahead.
not the first person I've heard make that argument that Joe Biden or the Democratic Party is like an abusive spouse or husband or whatever. Breaking Points is a show that I watch quite often, and Crystal Ball is actually married to the Kyle Kalinske guy I was talking to earlier.
Okay, okay.
But they both used to be very hard on the Democrats and level headed, right? And now they're both vote blue no matter who. Like the whole Trump just really did a number on people, and I don't find Trump to be too different than a Ronald Reagan, a Bill Clinton, like Joe Biden in the crime bill. Like he said, he's more brash a little bit. He talks a little more just outright, like, "Oh, we're there to take the oil. We know we're there to take the oil, but no one says it." But Trump, to me, he just says the quiet part out loud more often than anybody else.
Yeah, and I mean, let's go to Malcolm for this one. Malcolm said the white liberal is a fox, bares its teeth to you. You think that it's smiling, but you're on the menu. the white conservative is a wolf. When it bares its teeth, it's in a vicious snarl that leaves the
Right.
Negro with no illusion as to where he stands.
Trump will let you know.
So, yeah, and so what Malcolm said, he said, Malcolm said the white liberal is the most dangerous thing in the Western
I
Hemisphere.
agree.
And now we've got a lot of off-white liberals that are just as dangerous, the Kamala Harrises of the world and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. So when Malcolm said this in 1964, I just want to point out that white conservatives at that point in time were literally shooting white voting rights activists and burying them in shallow graves off of country roads in the South. White conservatives were turning dogs and fire hoses on black protesters. White conservatives were lynching Negroes and hanging people from trees. And Malcolm, who was not wrong, said that the white liberal is the most dangerous thing in the Western Hemisphere. And the
Right.
reason
So
is an open enemy. You can see them coming. Whereas an enemy that pretends to be a friend will knife you in the back. And the thing is that we, not me, but we, collective we, have been falling for the okey doke from, from hypocrites, from people that are veiled enemies to us for a long time.
okay, as you said, Malcolm said the white liberal is the worst enemy, and I like how you expanded to the off-white liberal because I say that too. Now it's just not white on any liberal is if you're a Democratic fighter, if you're just so hard up on the Democrats, you're not understanding politics. You're not understanding what's good for people. But
Let me just say one thing on that though that I think is worth mentioning is that I've tried to clean up my own messaging on this point because it's very easy to batter libs, uh, and it can be like for some people like personally gratifying to do so. I think that the strategy to take going forward is quite literally to just hold liberals to account for what their own professed value system is.
right,
Because if you do that, then it becomes objectively apparent that the current Democratic Party cannot deliver on what liberals say that they want. And so, even if I were a liberal, which I'm not and never have been, but if I were a liberal, the things that I say that I want cannot be delivered by any current or even recent iteration of the Democrat Party in order to get to any of those, not even socially progressive, but just not socially destructive positions, then you need to actually adopt something that's outside of the duopoly. Because to
right.
be perfectly honest, the so-called left versus right ideological spectrum is completely meaningless when both parties are corporate owned.
Right. Well, in America, they're both right wing parties, so it's not really a left versus right
Correct.
comparison. But um, I know we're getting close to the end here. You were talking about the liberals, and I wanted to hit on Hillary Clinton. And there's been a lot of things that you've said today that I've been writing notes that I wanted to ask on, and I can't touch on everything. But Hillary Clinton is a huge reason that we have Donald Trump. The liberal lady who cheated Bernie Sanders, who was the left wing ish guy in the Democratic Party,
Yep.
and then they had their Pied Piper strategy where they helped Donald Trump, through media and whatnot. And Donald
Yeah.
Trump, they would show just his podium. He wouldn't even be up yet. Bernie Sanders would be giving a speech, but they'd be showing Donald Trump's podium. And so he got, like they said, like 10, I think it was $1 billion or some crazy amount of money worth of just free publicity
Right.
just from the news stations and whatnot. But Hillary Clinton was a big reason for that. And that's like what liberals would do. They'd rather push a further right agenda than a further left agenda. Because liberals, I think when they get down to it, like a liberal like Hillary Clinton, she knows she's on the right. Maybe a liberal who votes for Hillary Clinton might not know it. They might be
That's a good
confused a
point.
little bit.
That's a
But
good
and then
point.
what you said was you wanted to have a different way to talk or communication thing. And when you were saying that, I thought that the liberals who vote, they're more. I think they have a bit of fear to them, right? They're scared of Trump. They're scared of whatever other people can do. Where the liberals who are running and in the Democratic Party, they know what they're doing, and they're tricking the voters, and the voters are more scared. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you were afraid of is already here. And the people that said that they were
Exactly.
going to protect you, how did that work out for you? right?
Right.
So at this point in time, the only sane decision is to build third-party power. Because as I
Okay.
said before, the only thing that you know for sure is that the Democrats are not going to save you. They are incapable of saving you. And somebody like, Hillary Clinton with that Pied Piper strategy, it didn't just stop there. They dumped tens of millions of dollars into far right-wing fascist candidates because they thought that they would be more competitive against extremist, candidates.
Right.
And that's contributed to, to what's usually referred to as the ratchet effect, right? Is that the right wing pushes things further and further to the right, and the Democrats chase them to the right. They every time they lose an election, they say it's because we were too far left. So the Republicans push things further to the right, and the Democrats keep things from ever going back.
Too far left.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what you end up with is, now a Democrat Party, as I mentioned before, that even Reagan would be like, damn, and Reagan. Let me just be clear about this. Reagan was as black-hearted a son of a bitch as ever walked the planet Earth, right? I mean, he
Right.
was he was a like there's tape of him and Richard Nixon, talk on a live mic when African dignitaries were in the White House calling them monkeys and saying that this was their first time wearing shoes, right? That's
Oof.
the kind of piece of shit that Ronald Reagan was. But Ronald Reagan was objectively better than this current iteration of the Democrat Party.
Do you know who Lee Atwater is? Since you spoke of Ronald Reagan and Nixon, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard the video of him talking about the N word, N word, N word?
No, no, I
Okay,
missed
so
that.
look up Lee Atwater. Spell the N word three
Yeah, yeah, no.
times.
Oh
On
man. Okay, I'll check it out.
and so he had a little thing where he was talking to some Republican people, and it was supposed to be not recorded, and somebody recorded it, right? But he was talking about how we used to say the N word, but now we got to use busing, taxes, this and that, whatever, whatever, and we got to use different
That's all it
terms
is.
to hurt the black people more than we hurt the white people. But yeah, look that up if you want to hear that. It's something I put on
Check
my
it
thing a
out.
lot. But whoa, let's see. We are coming towards the end. I want to respect your time, so Mr. Professor Butch Ware, Doctor, this is your ending. You can go out how you like. Let us know what you.
I mean, all I would say is if you've had enough of this, exploitative, absurd nonsense, we have an option now. Butch Ware for Gov, BUTCHWARE, the number four GOV, right? ButchWareForGov.com, .org, .net. We bought them all, but come check out what we're building, because what we're building is government by and for the people. But this time, unlike the Declaration of Independence, for whatever it's worth, this time it's by and for all the people, not just certain of the people. And
Right.
California is the perfect laboratory for this. If California was an independent nation, if all of the states were independent nations, California would have the fifth largest economy in the world, and it doubles the economy of the next largest state in the U.S., both in terms of population and GDP, which is the state of Texas.
Excellent.
So all of them billionaires that are threatening to leave California ain't going no place because Texas is not California.
Right.
Okay. I mean that's just objectively true. And what happens in the state of California shapes American politics. If we get universal health care here in the state of California, that means it's coming to every state because that's how it happened in Canada. One province got it, and then everybody else wanted it after that. If you use me and this Green Party campaign to break the duopoly, then you are getting free from the duopoly in all of these states. We are going to have an actual people powered political party that is here to
Right.
stay and can serve as a counter punching force against these corporate criminals. You got war criminals on both sides of the aisle. You got white supremacists on both sides of the aisle. You got domestic terrorists currently in the White House. It's time for the people to take power and fight back. And we're starting that here in Cali.
I love it. Thank you for your time, sir, and I hope I can have you back on the show sometime.
Looking forward to it, brother. Take care.